Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Playbook of the Wealthy. You're here for another episode. My name is Dave Grant. My co-host is Heather Townsend, as usual. And today, it's a little bit different. We are doing a deep dive into my company and why I do what I do and what I like, what I don't like, who I like working with, and everything in between. So before we move on, if you're watching the video, if you're listening to the podcast, please do us a favor, pause the show. Either hit subscribe, hit follow, hit a like. If you want to comment later on, that's great. But this allows us to expand our reach and to have more people listen and to make, honestly, better content for you. Before we do move onward, we are a financial services podcast, so we do have disclaimers. And here we go. All opinions expressed by Dave Grant and Heather Townsend are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the views of their respective wealth management firms. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Nothing in this material constitutes a solicitation for the sale or purchase of any securities. Clients of Retirement Matters and Townsend Financial may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
You did not do the disclaimer very fast. What happened to drug commercial Dave?
I was struggling to breathe. Okay. If I do it too fast, I'm like, I'm going to faint.
Okay, I call it next time then.
Please, call it every time. I don't care.
Okay.
Please.
The boring disclaimer. Okay, do your favorite part, your favorite section. Let's go.
All right. So this is a section which is all about our top professional highlights. It's dedicated to Joey Tribbiani because it's called How You Doing? Heather, it seems weird for me to ask you that because it's a pickup line and you're a professional colleague.
I don't know how thought of it. I didn't even think that. Yeah, I guess, no, that's right. Joey did do it as a pickup line. So that's why you always need to go first then, I guess.
Sarah, my wife, I apologize. Disrespected you. So, Heather Townsend, professionally, how are you doing? See, that didn't sound like a pickup line, right?
No. I'm doing great. I am in the process of developing my first employee. And, we're about a month in, a little over a month. And that is where I'm in my firm. I'm just learning as an entrepreneur to not take on too many things at once. And I am in this settling period. And I know to move forward, I need to just get through tax season. And I want to develop my employee really good. Now, my coach this week yelled at me because I was like, I feel like I'm not doing as good of a job developing my employee. Something is missing. And she's like, Heather, I already told you, you have to have time on your calendar, which I do give her time on my calendar. But she's like, no, you're doing this all wrong. She yells at me all the time. I love her for it. It's what I need. But point being is, for anyone who is learning to take on their first employee, you're going to learn with me. She said that I need to have multiple, on the calendar, at least twice a week check-ins with her. On Monday, a little bit after our morning coffee, we now have this reoccurring meeting and a reoccurring meeting on Friday. We might do Wednesdays at first. So I'm learning how to develop. I'm learning a whole new skill during tax season. Oh, and because this is just how life works, my CPA renewal is due. 80 credits I have to have. I found out I was short by 20 because, the CFP doesn't count. Those credits don't count to the CPA or my certified student loan. Yeah, all of those. So, it's due on Friday. I'm getting close. I think I only have 5 or 6 more hours left. But, it's always like when it rains, it pours. That's my long how I'm doing.
Yeah, that was a history of your week. For the CPA things, can you take an online class and then do the quiz and it counts?
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
And if you know the content, you can skip to the quiz.
Yeah, no, you can actually, it's even easier. You just click the I'm here in attendance. You just click the button.
I like that. Someone called me out for my when I was on Twitter, when I wasn't banned, that's another story.
You got banned on Twitter? Or X, we call it now?
Yes, for inciting violence.
Wait, no. You cannot. What?
Yes.
You're not
You want to hear the story now?
Yes, you have to. You're not a violent human.
Okay, exactly. That's why it's ironic.
But you do get
So,
heated. You do get heated. I think you get heated in your words. So maybe that's what happened.
you know what also doesn't translate over social media? Sarcasm. And this is why I got in trouble. Um, so there was a news story in England, and it was a story of this woman about to give birth. She couldn't get an ambulance to the hospital, so she got in her car with her husband. Husband was driving her, and they were met with a in-person protest in the street on the way to the hospital, and she couldn't get through. And so my comment was, "Guess some people are getting run over today." And then they're like, "That incites violence. You're banned." I'm like, okay, did people get run over? No. This woman was having a child in a car. Come on. And they're like, no, we reviewed it. You're done. I'm like, well, that just means
Wow.
more time for TikTok.
I was thinking it was going to be a lot more juicy. Like you got into some really heated debate about people and finances and all of that on, and that was it. Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, isn't it a lame story?
It
But it's
is.
fun to say you got banned for inciting violence. It's a
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
statement.
Okay.
Anyway, that was a tangent.
How are you
Um,
doing?
Things are going well. One thing I realized yesterday, when I don't have stuff to do, I spiral. So I have my to-do list of things that I need to get done, but when it's not fun, client-related, let's solve a problem stuff, I lose motivation
Like
because I'm like,
ABB stuff, like compliance stuff, like those kind of examples?
I have my list here. It's to generate written content for the next month. That's fine, but could I do it tomorrow? Yes. So I push it to tomorrow.
Mm.
And it's just
No.
not helpful.
In all the books and things I study, Dave, that is stuff that is dragging your energy down and you need to offload eventually.
Okay, can you find someone that can write about RSU wash sales and a 10B51 plan?
Chat GBT and then review it because you know it's going to get it wrong.
It would suck. I've tried to write articles like technical articles in ChatGPT are horrible.
I find that if I record it, it's easier for me. And then I have it
Okay,
transcribed because I'm easier at talking. Hence why I like a podcast so much.
that's a good idea. Yeah. But yeah, there's that. And then it started to get my juices flowing for my second podcast, which is called the 5 minute retirement plan. And so now I'm getting all the materials ready for that to release in a couple weeks.
Got it.
Plug, toot toot, my horn. All right, let's dive in. This is where you're going to learn about me. So if you don't want to learn about me, you can stop watching now. Great intro that was. All right, Heather, you're leading this. You're leading with questions, and I am going to go for it.
Okay. One thing though, we no longer than 2 minute answer. I'm going to fire
Okay,
them at you. Are you ready?
I'll try.
Okay. Why'd you become a financial advisor?
I don't have the legs to be a dancer.
Okay. Ha 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 ha. Okay. Moving
Haha.
on.
So, long story short, I am an immigrant from England with a psychology degree, which means I'm qualified to do absolutely nothing. And when I started working in human resources, I realized as we were a newly married couple, didn't, I didn't know a lot about our finances. Sarah knew more because she lived here. And so then I started taking the CFP, which is a Certified Financial Planner course, by myself at home after work. And then realized, okay, this is really cool. Do people do this for a job? And then started reading about it. And yes, people do it for a job. It's called a financial advisor. I was so green. I knew nothing. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do this. Then I got fired because they hired too many people. And then I found a job as a receptionist in a financial advisory firm and then learned it from there, and it all took off. So it was purely by accident.
Accident, but I don't think someone just goes and takes the CFP course unless you have a passion for finance.
I didn't. I just didn't know anything because all my knowledge was UK based. So I had moved here. Someone was like, oh, what about your tax returns? Did you do a 401k? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
The UK from living there is so different than the US. Oh dear. Just talk about
It
that
is.
tax alone. We won't even go into that. Okay. So, how long have you had your firm now, Dave?
So I was working for other companies for 6 years, and now I launched mine in 2013, and now we're in 2025, so 12 years.
12 years. Wow. Okay. So tell me, when you started to where you are now, difference in clientele, I'd imagine, difference in niche. I feel like you told me you
Hmm.
started with a totally different clientele than you are now.
So when you work in a financial advisory firm that's not focused on a certain demographic, it's very general. You essentially take anyone who comes in the door who can pay your fee, which means your knowledge has to be general, which that's a lot to keep up on. And so my wife is a teacher, and we were starting to build our financial plan based on what goes on with an Illinois teacher's, pension benefits, et cetera, and different contracts. And then I realized, okay, well, if that is more complex than I thought it was going to be, integrating that into a private sector employee, there has to be other people going through that too. And so then I launched a firm. It was called Finance for Teachers at the time. It was focused just on Illinois teachers, and that's who I wanted to work with.
I remember that because I think when I launched my firm, which was 4 years after you, 5 years after you were one of the founding members, weren't you, of XYPN? Everyone who's not
I
listening,
was not.
you were not.
No. I had had conversations with Alan about starting XYPN, and we didn't decide to do that. And then he went on and founded it.
Wow. So you were like really early days of this whole RIA movement because I remember your name. Like you were very well known in XYPN when I first joined, when I was a little baby.
Yeah, I think I had been involved with. So there's an organization called the FPA, the Financial Planning Organization. I had been involved with NextGen, which is their younger member group. I had started Genesis, which, as part of another organization, was just for young members. And so that's NAPFA, for anyone who understands acronyms in our industry. I started Genesis, grew that up, and then that started to flow into XYPN as to younger members who wanted to start their own firm. Then I was a writer professionally for one of our industry magazines. I have like 150,000 subscribers, and would write every month about what it was like for a younger advisor, what challenges we were facing. And then it flowed into, well, what happens when a younger advisor starts their firm? And they wanted me to do a diary. And so that's what I did. I was writing 3 days a week for them. So that's how my name got out there.
Yeah. Because you were really well known. Like I'll always remember when you asked, when you came to Arizona, which I'll have to tell that story at some other point. But we sat down. I was so honored that I got to have coffee with you because you were like famous in the financial planning world.
Which blows my mind because A, I didn't feel it, and B, it's the furthest thing I want to be.
But do we ever feel it? I feel like we never feel like that's just not our personality. But okay, going back to this. So you started with teachers in Illinois, but that is not your main focus today. So when did that switch? And what made you decide to switch?
So my fee model was a little different. So when I was working at other firms, it was all about gathering investments and charging on those investments. And I was like, that's fine, but teachers don't have that. They're very pension heavy. Yeah. So can I work with teachers and either charge them by the hour or charge them on an annual subscription basis? For 3 years, that kind of plodded along, but didn't get it revenue-wise where I needed to be. Like it was just a struggle bus. And so then I was like, I kind of need to rebrand at this point. I still want to work with teachers, but maybe I need to open up my billing structure. Maybe I need to start managing investments. Maybe I need to work with a little bit wider range of people. And so that's when I rebranded everything. It was, the company name, which is now Retirement Matters. I do work with a lot of teachers still. I did a lot of content out there, written and video and whatnot. And people still find me based on that. So it's, doing content is like a long form of client interaction. And it works for a long time. So I still work with Illinois teachers, but I would say that's 50% of my client base, maybe 40. And the other percent is more people who are transitioning into retirement and trying to figure out, how do I turn my money from savings into an income?
I think we've talked about your client focus. What I want to know is I don't actually know the answer to this question. So I'm really curious. How do you design your plans, your financial plan?
Oh, good one. Yeah, because for people who are not in our industry, there's so many different ways to do it. So I know people that design their plans in a modular way. They do it topic area at a time. I do it the reverse. I like to get all the amount of data I can from clients and have all the conversations up front, and then design a full plan for that person covering every different area. And then we sit down and we have our conversations again, talking about the changes that need to be made. And here's why, and here's what it triggers when you make that change. Because when you do a plan in sections, you don't actually realize what changes what area if you're not looking at it all at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it's, in our industry, it's comprehensive, but it just means I'm doing everything and looking at everything all at the same time. And then if people are working with me on a one-time basis, then it's delivered in a way that, okay, here's the change you need to make here, just so you know it's going to implement changes in these areas. And if you don't like that, don't make the initial change. And it's just very easy to understand.
Do you is your plans custom? Is it just more an email of action items? Like, do you give a deliverable? Where are you with that?
Because that's very. So I do. I mean, I grew up in the world of leather binders, and this is what we deliver to clients, and that's terrible. Because I had a leather binder delivered to me, and it ended up in the trash because that plan was old after a year. So mine are. There's an executive summary where it's a summary of every different action point that we're going to go through and why I'm suggesting that change. And then there's probably at most 4 reports. You know, one is the big overall plan of what your life looks like. But then there's an investment focus report. If someone is very close to or in retirement, there's a retirement income report saying, okay, here's what your income looks like this year. Here's what your taxes are. Here's when the money's coming from. And here's the changes I would suggest. Mm-hmm. And so for people, it's very easy to follow. There's not much paper. It's all conversation. Here's your summary. Work from that. And then for people who've been with me a long time, I have a one-time financial plan summary of everything. So it's a very visual report. And then at the end, it's got action items for this year.
Awesome. Okay. Do you have employees?
Not technically. I employ an agency that gives me backup support, as in when I need it. So that's primarily for, you know, a lot of stuff that I do marketing-wise requires scheduling, editing, updating websites. That's what those people do, because that's not the best use of my time. And then I have an admin person that should paperwork get too heavy, then I pull them in and I'm like, here's X, Y, and Z I need you to do. But if there's nothing to do, then you're not needed.
Okay, so you don't have full-time, but you have an agency backing you up. What I want to know is, what's your growth plan? You know, this is talked about a lot in our industry. Are you trying to grow big? Are you more trying to have a lifestyle practice? Like, what is your, I don't really like the term lifestyle practice. We should take that out. What is that? But, you know, like, what are you trying, what is your growth plan for Retirement Matters?
It's interesting because it's been shaped a couple ways, and it's shaped from the firms I used to work at. So one was a company, had a founder, had a daughter work at. They were trying to build a company that was growing, but was focused on healthy employees and healthy clients. And if it grew too fast and either of those didn't work, then that wasn't great. The next firm I worked at, the goal of the founder was to have $1 billion firm by the time he retired. And in my back of my mind, I was like, why? What does that mean? Is it just a vanity metric? So then I took all of that into my firm, and, you know, it comes in stages. One is, okay, I need a livable wage.
Totally.
And then once you get that, it becomes, okay, let's do some fun stuff with some extra money and save for the fun goals. And now it's become, I want to earn enough where I can give $100,000 away each year and still live a great life myself and for my family. But I never want this to become all consuming of my time.
Yeah.
So there's that balance.
You're really good with boundaries on that. Well, and let's just face it, probably to buy your bigger house. Let's see what happens. We'll see if you guys stay within your budget. I mean, who buys a house within their budget? I feel like everyone reaches.
My wife will. She's already told me we're not going over a certain number.
Okay.
Like, well, what if?
Yeah, I don't know her yet, but okay. I just always feel like everyone always has some budget. And then, like, you know, the realtors are really good about this, but they go, well, if you just went like, you know, this much more, and then you see what you could have, and you always become the sucker for it.
Well, the nice part is, if we can go there, we have lived far below our means in our house for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So now we're about to double our budget on the house, which gets you a far bigger, better version of where you're at now. We don't need it, so we can afford to go lower if we wanted to. But if we were to stick to our high end of the budget, it would be too much of a house for us. So it's a nice place to be in.
It's so interesting that you say that because, when Alex and I shopped, we doubled our budget and it didn't even wow me. It didn't even move the needle. Like
Hmm.
you can't, everything need to be redone. You got a bigger house, but it wasn't like a wow. And I'm like, if I'm going to double my budget, I need a wow. And I'm not ready to triple or quadruple my budget. So it's interesting how the areas are so different, right? Like,
It is.
yeah.
You get a lot in the Midwest.
Yeah. Okay. Before I get a little personal on your business, what's your communication strategy with your clients? Are you more email heavy, phone, live meeting? Like, what is your communication style?
I actually ask that when people come in and they start working with me. And I'm like, what is your preferred style? Because if you're a texter and I start to email you and that just falls through the gaps, both of us are going to get frustrated. So I design it based on what client's preference is. And if say someone is an emailer, they're back and forth because they're always on the road. And if I stop getting responses to an email, then I change and I'll start calling them. And if I can't get through that way, I'll start texting them because something has dropped off there. And it could just be that they're busy, which is fine. But if they get to a point and they're not responding, then I get a response. Whether that's a just leave me alone right now or I'm sorry, let's pick it up again. Because I work very deeply with clients, and if the communication stops, that's because something is wrong.
Yep. Doesn't it runs over in my head? Like I know who I haven't talked to in a while or who isn't responding.
I mean, I had a conversation today with a client. I had emailed her, I had called her, and then was it yesterday or the day before I texted her, and she texted me back. I'm like, okay, I got through, and there was something wrong. Like it was a professional and personal issue going on at the same time, and we connected on the phone and we talked it through. And she's like, okay, now I can get you what you need because now I know that we've talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all personal preference.
It's interesting too, though. The hard part about I love email and I think email should be used a lot, but there are just some things in our profession that can't be done on email. They need to be done on a phone or a live Zoom or meeting because I'm not going to spend 2 hours explaining this when I can talk about it in 10, right? Like if someone only can do email, I can't do that. You have to be able to do both. But there's also not everything needs a meeting either, right? There's always a balance.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where there's either it's too complex to talk about in an email and there will be questions.
Yep.
Or if there's things that can be misinterpreted, I'm
Yep.
not doing email. It then has to be live.
Yep. Okay. So I want to get personal for a second. I'll ask the easy question.
Okay.
What's your favorite part of your business?
Oh, I actually like talking to new people, which as an introvert is something I never thought I would say. But it's the whole discovery of finding someone new, understanding what their problems are. And this probably takes it egotistical, how I can help them fix it. It's not that the focus goes on me, but I want to be valuable to people.
The problem solver.
And so that's the exciting part.
I love that. Okay, here's the hard one. What's your least favorite? Be honest.
I actually don't like getting things wrong. That's a very generic answer, but when I'm doing tax reviews with people and it comes back and I got it wrong because I miscalculated something or something didn't work out, I take that very deeply and personally. I shouldn't. It was a miscalculation. We'll make mistakes. But that to me damages the relationship in some way. Does it? Might not. But for me, I like knowing that I've given someone the right answer and haven't made a mistake.
I'll make you feel better for a second. So in our CPA world, there's actually been studies done where CPAs have been given the same amount of tax information. I don't know if you've heard this. They prepare a tax return, say 10 of them. Guess what? Do you think that any of those 10 tax returns look the same? I'm going to give you the answer. They're all different. They're all different. Because
That's
it's actually
crazy.
but it's kind of not. Like, I was talking to my husband about this, and granted he's in like state and local corporate tax world, but he's like, yeah, that completely makes sense because so much of the tax code is left up to interpretation. It really is. It is a very
Hmm.
gray area, which I had to get okay with, considering my two favorite colors are black and white. But it is so gray. And there's so many things in the tax world that I feel like are just gotchas, an exception upon exception. So give yourself some grace there. I mean, CPAs that
Yeah.
do this, I mean, I'm correcting CPAs that do return far more returns and are far smarter than I am, I think about. But just because there's just so much to know and so many things that can be missed, it's helpful to have multiple reviewers and just multiple people kind of sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. Um, all right. How do you charge? And who's your ideal client right now?
So I got two ways of working with me. One is for people who just want a one-time review of things. That has changed pricing over the years. Now I'm pretty much stuck on that's going to be $5,000. If you walk in the door and you're confident, or you walk in the door and you have no idea what's going on, it's the same price for everyone. Like, I know what is involved in my time and expertise to solve someone's situation. So I just use a blanket price. Like, I'm fine if I go over, I'm fine if I go under. That then transitions to, if you want to leave it at that and then go do your own plan, great. Have a wonderful life. Or if people turn around and say, I can't do this, or can you do this for me? Then it turns into an ongoing relationship where I start managing money, but I do all the planning and all the tax work as well. So I do that based on it's called, AUM, assets under management charge. I charge 1% of the asset balance up to a minimum fee of $15,000. That's where we start. And then once account balances get to 3 million, then it gets cheaper and cheaper.
You're very similar to me. One more personal question, because I have a story. What was like your worst client experience or worst like thing that has happened in your business? Because
Yeah.
I think people think that like running your own business is just so easy, right? But it's not. It's like,
It's not at all. So this would probably been like the first year of business. It was just a bizarre client scenario. Like, someone called me up and said, I have these 3 questions and I'm happy to pay for your time, pay for hourly. At this time, I didn't have an office. And they're like, we want to meet in person. I'm like, cool, you live an hour away. Are you willing to drive and see me? Because I'm not willing to drive and see you, because I don't want to do that.
wow,
And
that
they're
is
like,
impressive.
sure.
Wait, that is so impressive. In the beginning, I think I would have driven that hour because I was just so unconfident at that time. That's amazing that you are right out the gate were like, first client, I'm not, or first few clients, whatever, I'm not driving to see you. Amazing. I did
Well,
drive an hour actually one time for a client.
their
Now that I
response
remember
back
this.
was, their response back was, yeah, we don't want you here. We'll come and see you. I was like, oh, well, that lines up, but I don't know what that means. I had to clean my entire house. I didn't have an office. They were coming to my house to have this meeting over my kitchen table. So I had to
Wow.
clean my entire house for this person to come in. They explained all their problems. I was solving it essentially at the table. They then walked out of my house to have a discussion, came back in and said, we're not willing to pay you the price that you charged us for that because it seemed too easy. I was like, okay, you're at my kitchen table. I don't know what to say. I pretty much said, you're paying full price.
Yeah, and what do you
Like,
mean
just
it's too
because it
easy?
seemed
Yes.
easy doesn't mean you didn't get the answer.
Well, that's also why we charge where we're at. I mean, okay, when I first started this, or, when I first started my job, doing a whole bucket cash flow, real deep retirement plan would have taken me, I don't know, 20, 30 hours. I mean, I can probably do one in like 5 hours now. Pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe two. It depends on how complicated, it depends on the complexities. But when you become the expert, you get quicker at it. That's just how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
That's
The flip side of that is now sometimes I feel guilty the amount of charge and the amount of time I can get that problem solved.
I
I'm
used to
like,
have
should I
that.
charge this amount of money? And someone framed it well the other day. They're saying, well, it didn't, and this has been said again and again, you didn't learn this yesterday. Like, this took you 15 years to learn how to do that right, quickly, explain it well, and be able to charge for that amount. And you're also taking the risk as a business owner when you earned zero in the first year. So should you not be able to make up for some of that lost earnings and charge for your expertise?
My
And then
coach
that stumped me. I was like,
always
yes.
always yells at me for that. Always yells at me for that. She also reminds me of how risky our business is and how much compliance and red tape and all the stress that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel fine. And that I just paid $8,000 to my cybersecurity firm. That was a fun bill.
Gross.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. All right. So, we have a question section, but I'm just going to ask you a few more questions.
All right.
So, if I were looking to hire a financial planner, why should Retirement Matters be their top choice or my top choice?
So I think, one, do you find yourself in the phase that you're looking seriously at retirement? Because that's all I do, is I look at retirement, I research retirement, I figure out better ways to retire and how to make that more enjoyable, both from a financial and non-financial sense. If you're looking to fund your kids' education, I'm not the right guy for you.
No,
If you're looking to plan a meaningful retirement and figure out how to do that well, you should probably hire an expert. And that's what I focus in. So that's probably the good fit for you.
Okay, if you were working together, how would you know that our work is worth the money I'm paying you for? Yeah, Dave, if I'm paying you $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year, how do I know I'm getting my money's worth, buddy?
All right. How many questions do you have about what I just told you? If I'm delivering a plan. And if you had 7, did I answer all 7? And did you fully understand those questions and answers? My hope is yes. If the answer is no, I didn't do my job well. So that means that we're going to just explore it a little bit more. If I didn't provide you the right answer, how can I change that? Were my explanations too long? Was it delivered in the wrong way? Did I write it down versus tell you? That evolution of a relationship is what I'm working towards. I want to make sure that every client in their own unique way is getting so much value out of the relationship that they don't actually mind what they're paying, because they know if they try to look somewhere else, they're not going to get as good of service or relationship.
That, what you just spoke about, I actually feel is one of the hardest parts of our job, is figuring out that. So one time I was giving advice to a client and I didn't know their money history. I didn't know, and I struck a chord with them that I didn't know because I didn't know their history. Thank gosh the client came and told me that their money traumas and these very, very personal stories that I now know. But right, like one way that I was communicating with that client totally didn't land. But with another client, that completely lands. And that's what's so hard, right? Like some clients want you to go in all the detail, want all the in-depth analysis. And other clients of mine are like, Heather, give me brush strokes. Like I'm losing you, right? And you have to
Yes.
You have to, and I'm happy to give all the details. I want my clients to understand, but I also want to provide value. And so you have to always figure out with the client, how much detail do they want? You have to that's why I like Zoom. I can't just do a phone call. It's exactly what you talked about. It's like you have to get to know by their facial features. Like, are they understanding this? Is this landing? Right?
Yeah. I think another thing is when you're a parent and your child is grown, well, I guess they've grown and left the home. If you can say to your advisor, can you just have a conversation with my son or daughter? It could be a positive or a negative situation. Like it doesn't matter, but you need that third party in there just to kind of guide that younger generation. I do this with a number of clients.
Same.
And it becomes a case of you become that trusted family advisor. Mm-hmm. And I don't charge to work with younger generations. Like it's all based on the parents' fee. And then I find the parents' trust level with you, the parent's satisfaction level with you skyrockets because you just helped their child do something that they couldn't do because they're too close.
Is there anything else you want anyone to hear out in this world, Dave, about retirement matters before we move on to personal wins? How did I do as interviewing you? How do you feel?
That was good. I think I would summarize it by saying if you're looking for an advisor and you don't want transactional relationships, you want something deep, you want someone who has technical knowledge across the board, don't cheap yourself on finding that. You're going to need to pay for it, but it's well worth it. And shamelessly, I am that guy if you're retiring. No doubt.
Wait, tell the designation. I think this is so funny. You never talk about it, but you took the designation, but then didn't keep it because you're way smarter than me and don't want to keep paying the annual renewal fees or having to keep up with all the continued education credits, but you got it.
Yeah. So the retirement income certified professional.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
you pretty much take 9 months learning different ways to design retirement income for people in different situations and how to optimize it. Yeah. I took 2 of the 3 exams. I learned everything, but I didn't want to get the designation so I didn't have to do all the CEs every year because I have all the knowledge. Like it doesn't make sense. And now I'm doing one for tax professionals. Like I probably do one every 2 years. Oh, highlights. Heather, I am in trouble for highlights. Trouble.
Why?
Did you know that there's a Love is Blind for most countries?
What?
So you know the show, Love is
Yes.
Blind.
I still have not watched it, but I'm aware of what it is. Yes.
Okay, so there's a Love is Blind UK. There's a Love is Blind Germany. There's a Love is Blind Dubai. And now Netflix is continuing to show me which ones I have not watched.
Okay, hold on. This would actually be fascinating because from someone and like you who've grown up in the UK and stuff, like I'm like, ooh, I want to see how people react in Germany versus the UK versus the US versus Dubai. Just culturally, I'm fascinated because I know how different those cultures are. That would be fascinating how different Love is Blind. Have you started watching them? Because I want to know how different the cultures are. Are they different?
Yes, I watched one while having lunch today because I'm that addicted to it. And it is. I mean, I'm a psych major. Back to college. This is what I did. We set up experiments to figure out how behavior is different.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's different culturally. But the whole experiment is falling in love with people you've never seen yet. That by itself is wild.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah.
And now you bring in different cultures. I started watching the English one and I had to put the captions on because I couldn't understand all the different accents, even though I lived in England till I was 23. It's just become so foreign to me. And the way they talk, the mannerisms, the UK one is far better than the US version. It's so much more real.
Well, because the
US version, they just blow smoke up each other. It's annoying.
Well, the UK, I mean, from living there, I mean, it's to let someone in, like I don't think I became friend with one Brit while I was living over there. They were all expats. I mean, you have to, like, I'm surprised you let me in, but I guess maybe you've changed to be like American. But like, I mean, you really have to be, when you're let in, it's a really big deal. When you're invited to someone's home in the UK, it's a very big deal. It's not like America where you're like, hey, let's get together for coffee. That's not, no, like that doesn't happen.
Your highlights.
So I took my daughters to ski lessons. Then I took them to swim lessons in the past week. And I got a really good compliment that I have good girls. But more in a different way of just good girls. I mean, in the way that is really important to me as a female. I'm raising strong women. Like that's what I kind of took away. Like they don't cry when they're with new people. They're adventurous. They're vocal. Like all these things I want my daughters to be. And I mean, I think as a working mom, there's definitely some guilt sometimes that I'm not around as much or whatever. But then to hear these people that deal with kids all the time to just give me a compliment, I know it shouldn't mean so much, but it was so validating. I'm like, okay, I'm doing okay. It's working. It's working. And so that was a big win for me, actually.
That's a very nice compliment to get.
Yeah. I thought so. I don't know if they're just like, I want to please Heather. We like Heather, so we're just going to tell her.
So she'll come back and pay us.
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't think so because it just seems very detailed of how they say it. They go, "No, your daughter's really like it's not just oh you have cute kids or something, right? It's
Yeah.
very detailed compliments, and so I sometimes have guilt that I'm not around as much as I want to be. My husband, honestly, I think does drop off and pick up more than I do at preschool, and so it was just really nice to hear. I'm still killing it at this mom thing.
All right. Well, that's all for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you for listening to this episode of Playbook of the Wealthy. You can find us on whichever platform you listen to podcasts, and the video version of the show is on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you want to send an email to us, you can contact us at hello@playbookotw.com, and we'll see you next time.
Toodles!